In 2008, a video appeared on the internet. It was filmed on a handheld camera, shaky, poor quality, shot in a field somewhere in Ukraine. Within hours of being posted online, it became the most disturbing video anyone had ever seen. Not because of special effects, not because of Hollywood magic, because it was real. The video showed three teenage boys torturing and murdering a man named Sergei Yatsenko. The attack lasted 45 minutes. They filmed every second of it. Then they posted it online themselves. They called it Three Guys, One Hammer. And here's what makes this case truly disturbing, beyond anything you can imagine. Sergei wasn't their first victim. He was their 21st. This is the story of Alexander Hanzha, Viktor Sayenko, and Igor Suprunyuk, three teenage boys from a middle-class Ukrainian city who committed some of the most brutal murders in recorded history. Not for money, not for revenge, not because they were starving or desperate or abused. For fun, to film it, and to post it online. And the question that everyone who hears this case asks is always the same. Why? Let me take you to Dnepropetrovsk, Ukraine, 2007. The city has just changed its name. It's now called Dnipro, but in 2007 it's still Dnepropetrovsk, a medium-sized Ukrainian city on the banks of the Dnieper River. Industrial, post-Soviet, population about 1 million people. Ukraine in 2007 is still rebuilding itself after the collapse of the Soviet Union. There's poverty, yes, but also growing prosperity for some. A middle class is emerging. Life is getting better, slowly. The three boys at the center of this story aren't from the poorest parts of the city. That's important to understand. Alexander Hanzha, Viktor Sayenko, and Igor Suprunyuk are 16 and 17 years old. They come from relatively normal families. They go to school, they have homes, food, parents. From the outside, they look like typical Ukrainian teenagers, but something is deeply, catastrophically wrong with all three of them. Looking back, the warning signs were there. Teachers describe all three boys as cold, distant, capable of cruelty without reaction. They tortured animals from an early age, cats, dogs, anything they could catch. Not in the impulsive way that disturbed children sometimes do, methodically, calmly, watching the animals suffer with something that looked like curiosity. They documented everything, early on with phones and cheap cameras, taking pictures of dead animals, comparing methods, discussing what worked best. Sayenko, who seems to be the dominant personality, is particularly noted by teachers as intelligent, but utterly lacking in empathy. He could pass a test about human emotions, but seemed genuinely unable to feel them himself. Hanzha is quieter, more withdrawn. He follows where Sayenko leads. His family later says they had no idea, no warning. He seemed troubled but quiet, not dangerous. Suprunyuk is different again, erratic, sometimes explosive, the one most likely to lose control. But underneath the explosiveness, the same cold core. Together, they form something more dangerous than any one of them individually. They feed each other's worst impulses, validate each other's darkest ideas. What one might have talked himself out of alone, the group makes normal. In 2007, they start killing. Their first victims are homeless people and alcoholics, people the city doesn't really notice, people society has already discarded. They attack them in parks and alleys, sometimes with tools, sometimes with their bare hands, always with cameras rolling. The first murder happens in June 2007. A homeless man sleeping in a park. They beat him to death with pipes and hammers. The killing takes minutes. They film it, watch it back, discuss it like they're reviewing a school project. Then they do it again. And again. Within 2 months, they've killed at least 7 people, all marginalized, all chosen because nobody will miss them, nobody will look too hard. And nobody does look. Ukrainian police in 2007 are underfunded, overworked, and not equipped to connect what look like separate random attacks on homeless individuals. Each case is investigated in isolation, no connection made, no pattern identified. The boys grow bolder. They start varying their targets, not just homeless people, anyone vulnerable who crosses their path, a woman, an older man, people walking alone at night, anyone who seems unlikely to fight back or be missed. Between June and November 2007, they commit 21 murders, 21 people killed in less than 6 months in the same city by the same 3 teenagers. How does this go undetected? How does this happen? The answer is uncomfortable. The victims don't matter enough, not to the police, not to the system. They're the invisible people, the ones society pretends don't exist. When homeless people die violently, investigations move slowly, resources go elsewhere. The boys understand this intuitively. They've chosen their killing ground carefully. They know the city's blind spots. But they make a mistake. Not all their victims are invisible. Sergei Yatsenko is 48 years old. He's not homeless. He has a family, a mother who loves him. He's fallen on hard times, struggling with alcohol, but he's known. He's connected to people who will notice he's gone. June 12, 2007. Yatsenko is walking near his home when the 3 boys approach him. They offer him help, maybe money, maybe food. He trusts them. Why wouldn't he? They're teenagers, boys. They lead him to a field outside the city. What happens next is documented on video. We won't describe it in full. We won't show it. What we will say is that what the 3 boys do to Sergei Yatsenko over the next 45 minutes represents human evil at its most raw and inexplicable. They don't rush. They're calm. They take turns. They use pipes, hammers, screwdrivers. They work methodically. They talk to each other casually during the attack, like it's nothing, like they're working on a school project. Sayenko films most of it. When it's over, they leave, walk away, like it was nothing. And then they make their critical mistake. They post the video online. They want people to see it. That's the point. Not just the killing, but the audience. They want the world to know what they did. They want recognition. They want to be known. The video spreads online with horrifying speed. By the time Ukrainian police become aware of it, it's already been viewed thousands of times around the world. People posting warnings, people sharing in disbelief. Is this real? Can this be real? It's real. Sergei Yatsenko's family sees the video. His mother identifies him. She goes to police with his name, with the video, with everything she has. Now police have a victim with a name and a family. Now they have pressure. Now resources appear that weren't there before. Investigators pull the video apart frame by frame, looking for identifiable details. What can they see? Trees, a field, partial glimpses of the killer's clothing. Then they find something crucial, a reflection. In one brief moment, the camera catches a reflection of the killers. Not clear enough to identify faces, but enough to see body types, age range. 3 young males. Teenagers, most likely. They canvass the area near where Yatsenko was last seen. They find witnesses who saw 3 young men with a man matching Yatsenko's description. They get descriptions. Meanwhile, investigators connect the Yatsenko murder to the string of earlier killings. Same methods, same geographic area, same approximate timing. Now they're looking for 3 teenage boys responsible for 21 murders. The investigation becomes Ukraine's most urgent criminal case almost overnight. Every resource is deployed. Every detective in the city is on this. 3 weeks later, they have names. Alexander Hanzha, Viktor Sayenko, Igor Suprunyuk. The connection comes through a local criminal network, someone who knows someone who heard something. In a city of 1 million, word travels. The boys are arrested separately. They don't put up resistance. They seem almost relieved, or maybe just indifferent. When police search their homes and phones, they find the full extent of what happened. Not just the Yatsenko video, multiple recordings, documentation of multiple murders, hundreds of photographs, detailed records that the boys kept themselves, almost like trophies. The evidence is overwhelming, undeniable, enough to convict many times over. But the most disturbing part of the investigation isn't the physical evidence, it's the interrogations. The boys confess, all three of them. They don't deny what they did. They describe murders in the same tone you'd describe what you had for breakfast. No emotion, no regret, no sign that they understand the gravity of what they're saying. When asked why, the answers vary slightly between the three boys, but they share a common thread. They wanted to. It was interesting. They wanted to see what it felt like. They wanted to film it. They wanted people to see it. They talk about the killings as experiments, experiences, as if the victims were props in a movie they were making. Not one of the three boys shows genuine remorse during interrogation. Their lawyers note this, the psychologists who evaluate them note this, the prosecutors note this. These are not boys who made a terrible mistake. These are not victims of poverty or trauma or circumstance taking out their suffering on others. These are three young people who killed 21 human beings for entertainment. The psychological evaluations are deeply troubling. All three boys show signs of severe antisocial personality disorder, potential psychopathy in at least two of the three, complete empathy deficiency, and inability to see other humans as fully real. But they're not legally insane. They knew what they were doing. They planned it. They hid evidence. They understood the concept of being caught. That's not insanity. That's calculation. The question the psychologists wrestle with is the question everyone asks. Were they born this way, or were they made this way? The evidence doesn't point clearly in either direction. Their childhoods weren't traumatic in any obvious way. No severe abuse, no extraordinary deprivation, nothing that jumps out as the moment everything went wrong. Sayenko's father is strict but not brutal. His mother is present. They're not rich, but they're not desperate. Viktor went to a normal school, had normal opportunities. Suprunyuk similarly, a family that functioned, a home, food, education. Hanzha perhaps had the most troubled background of the three. Some reports suggest more family dysfunction, but nothing that explains 21 murders. The most honest answer is that we don't know. The combination of these particular people at this particular time in this particular place produced something that defied explanation. The internet played a role. All three boys were deeply embedded in early internet culture. They spent hours online consuming violent content. The dark corners of the early internet, where brutal videos were shared, where violence was entertainment. This doesn't excuse what they did, but it contextualized something about how they thought about violence as content, as performance, as something to be filmed and shared and discussed. Sayenko in particular talked about wanting to be famous, about the video making them known, about people seeing what they were capable of. The trial begins in 2008. Ukraine doesn't have a justice system equipped for something like this. The case overwhelms courts that deal with ordinary crime. The evidence is so extensive, the crimes so numerous, that the trial itself takes months. The victims' families are present throughout. 21 sets of devastated people, people who lost their fathers, their brothers, their husbands, their sons, to three teenagers who felt nothing about it. The courtroom scenes are haunting. The three boys sitting in the defendant's cage, looking bored, sometimes whispering to each other, sometimes smiling at private jokes, the families of victims watching them across the room. The verdicts come in November 2008. Guilty on all counts. All three boys convicted of multiple murders. But here's where Ukrainian law creates a frustrating outcome. Ukraine abolished the death penalty in 1999. The maximum sentence is life imprisonment. That's what all three receive. Life. No parole, no possibility of release. Their appeals fail. They're sent to Ukraine's harshest prisons, maximum security, the kind of places where life is exactly what it sounds like. Viktor Sayenko and Igor Suprunyuk are in Zhytomyr prison. Alexander Hanzha is elsewhere in the system. They were 17 when they committed their first murders. They'll be in their 80s, if they survive that long, when they could theoretically be released, which they won't be. Ukraine's prison system is not kind to child killers, and it is certainly not kind to the Dnepropetrovsk maniacs. Reports from inside suggest that the other inmates know who they are and why they're there. Justice, of a kind, has been served. But has it? 21 families still have no real answers. They know what happened, they know who did it, but they still can't fully understand why. And the world, because of that video, shares their horror, because millions of people saw what was done to Sergei Yatsenko, because that video is still out there somewhere, passed from hard drive to hard drive, discussed on dark forums, treated by some as a curiosity rather than a record of a real man's murder. Sergei Yatsenko was a real person, not content, not shock value, not an experiment, a 48-year-old man who loved his mother and struggled with life and deserved better than what he got on that field outside Dnepropetrovsk in the summer of 2007. All 21 victims were real people, with names, with families, with lives that mattered even if the system failed to protect them. The Dnepropetrovsk maniacs case raises questions that criminology and psychology haven't fully answered even today. Can empathy be entirely absent in humans who otherwise develop normally? Does violent internet content contribute to real-world violence? Does society's failure to value marginalized people create environments where predators can operate? Does the desire for online notoriety represent a new motivation for violence that didn't exist in previous generations? We don't have clean answers to any of these questions. The case is studied. The boys are evaluated periodically. Their psychology continues to fascinate and disturb researchers in equal measure. What we do know is this. 3 boys from a normal city in a normal country decided that other human beings were props, were experiments, were content, and acted on that belief 21 times. The world saw the result. Most people who encountered that video report being unable to forget it, being changed by it, losing something they can't name. Because what that video did wasn't just show violence. It showed something about what human beings are capable of when empathy is absent, when other people stop being real to you. And in a world where dehumanization is increasingly common, where people are reduced to profile pictures and usernames and engagement metrics, that's a warning that deserves to be heard. Sayenko, Suprunyuk, and Hanzha are in prison. They'll likely die there, but the questions they leave behind are very much alive. How do we raise children who understand that other people are real? How do we build communities that protect the vulnerable people society wants to forget? How do we prevent the internet from becoming a marketplace for violence? How do we recognize the warning signs before 17-year-olds become murderers? We owe it to the 21 victims to at least keep asking. Their names deserve to be spoken, not the names of the killers. Not Sayenko, not Suprunyuk, not Hanzha. The victims, the 21 people who were alive before June 2007 and dead before December of the same year. They are the ones this story is about, and we should never forget that. 3 boys, 21 lives destroyed, 1 video that changed how the world thinks about violence and the internet. The Dnepropetrovsk maniacs are in prison, but the darkness they represented, the questions they raised, those don't have prison walls. Stay aware, stay human, protect the vulnerable people, because the world they exploited, the one that throws people away and forgets them, is the same world we all live in.
Protect the vulnerable. Recognize warning signs. Report suspicious behavior. Mental health and crime prevention resources displayed.